Hi, Alexi here. Welcome back to my channel where we're doing something a little different today. I'm crafting. Basically, there has been some stuff going on in the bookish community that I sort of wanted to talk about, but also honestly I couldn't bring myself to just sit in front of a camera and do. So we're killing two birds with one stone, feeding two birds with one scone, whatever. And I am putting tile on this table. Don't worry, I watched one TikTok about this, so I am a professional. So basically, this one Instagram, I don't know, bookish merch seller, Ali Rose Co. recently posted on her Instagram story a couple of passive-aggressive text posts that were essentially like, "Hi, I have trademarked the term Hot Girls Read, and if you are another business that has merch that says Hot Girls Read in the following categories, then I'm kindly asking you to take it down, XOXO. To be clear, she didn't trademark the words Hot Girls Read. It was just in specific categories because that's how trademarks work. It was stuff like sweatshirts, hooded sweatshirts specifically. So if you had a crew neck that said Hot Girls Read, she couldn't cease and desist you. Stickers, bookmarks, that sort of thing. So I'm working on refurbishing this Caddy Noir Monster High doll, for example, right? And if I wanted to sell her, which I don't, this is for fun, and I wrote Hot Girls Read on her head, which I'm working on, and you can see I got frustrated with, and then sold her, Ali Rose & Co. couldn't try to cease and desist or sue me because that is not in the purview of her trademark. Now, obviously, the bookish community was not into this, because if she did start actively cease and desisting people or threatening to sue people, Etsy in particular is pretty strict with its trademark stuff. So if you had an Etsy business selling Hot Girls Read bookmarks and she cease and desisted you or whatever, you would be completely screwed. Etsy would force you to take it down, as an example. Also, a couple of other things, right? She is not the person that came up with Hot Girls Read, as far as anybody can figure out. I read a Cosmo article about this, and people were saying stuff like Hot Girls Read books as early as 2020. And then, of course, the term Hot Girl or Hot Girls blank was popularized by Black rapper Megan Thee Stallion, the hot girl herself. So it definitely reads as stealing from a Black woman, because, my opinion, it low-key is, even if Megan Thee Stallion didn't say Hot Girls Read herself, although she should start selling Hot Girls Read merch. That would be really funny. Also, this is not gonna be even, and that's just life, I think. I'm gonna just live with that emotionally. Ali Rose Co., whatever, she did release a video statement recently saying that she is giving up the trademark and she is going to be donating the profits of her current Hot Girls Read merch on her website to two organizations. One of them was Room to Read. I don't really remember the other one, and I don't have a script I'm technically working off of because I'm doing a craft in chat. We are crafting right now. I don't know if you noticed. Not well, but we are doing it. So she is giving up her trademark. But part of what makes the situation so ironic is that she herself was selling things that were very much copyright infringement until recently, such as bookmarks that looked like paint chips that had the hex colors on book covers of Sarah J. Maas books, or the new Heated Rivalry covers. I miss the old Heated Rivalry covers, by the way. We should have kept those. Obviously without authorization. Some of them are still up on Instagram, so I'll show that here somewhere. It's sort of a copyright for thee, but not copyright for me kind of situation. Also, this is just a side thing. I don't quite understand buying bookmarks, and maybe that's partially because I always lose mine, so I always just use scraps of paper. So I'm really curious about people that buy bookmarks and sort of why they do that. And that's not a knock against them, it's just something that's personally not in my psyche. And then also, that's not anything against people that make bookmarks either. I think people that make bookmarks are super cool, and I've seen some really beautiful ones out there at like artist events I go to and that kind of thing. I sort of wasn't going to film anything on this, but then it sort of has been sticking with me as somebody that has kind of studied elements of book talk culture-y, sort of pop book communities. I think there's a lot of frustration in those communities right now at almost entitlement, and that kind of boiled over in this situation because it does feel quite, do I have a pen? I do. It does feel quite entitled to think that you can copyright a whole phrase that's being said by the community in a culture that makes fun of what in particular women read. That definitely does read as entitled to me, even if it wasn't meant that way, like consciously, right? I think most of the time people who are being entitled don't consciously mean to be entitled, of course. And I think there's a real frustration with that because, like, I feel like all the time there's drama with, God, what's the technical term that they use in the book industry for beta readers? ARC readers, I guess. Bullying each other and agents bullying each other, often in a way with racist undertones or overtones. I mean, like, Reads with Cindy has basically a whole series on her channel about authors that have pretended to be a race other than white to sell more books and to get more opportunities for marginalized authors. Or even there are authors, especially on threads, who are white authors who will say stuff like, marginalized authors have so many more opportunities than white authors these days. I'm being discriminated against. Which is, of course, not at all true. And that also is pretty entitled, thinking that you're entitled to resources and just this community, and you can infiltrate that community and the resources that they have gotten because the publishing industry is still so racist and discriminates so heavily against racialized authors. So I think that's part of this frustration that's boiling over as well, is it seems like this entitlement is happening all the time, and this was just another example of it. And of course, those are authors and not necessarily like creators, but it's all part of the bookish community. Another issue that's happening right now that I think affected why people were so angry and why this was sort of a boiling over point is that it's Pride Month right now, which means that a lot of book influencers are making rainbow stacks. And I recently learned that these rainbow stacks, books don't necessarily have to be gay. They don't necessarily have to have queer characters in them. And a lot of times they have like Harry Potter or Sarah J. Maas in them. Which leads me to my own area of expertise, if you will, in bookish communities, which I think is a bit of an overstatement. Oh, that moved my phone. I don't care. Which is, I have them over here. I call them my evil books. Books that were originally fan fiction. I also have a copy of the Hurricane Wars somewhere, but I don't know where it ended up. Sorry, my phone fell over. I think there's a lot of entitlement with books that used to be fan fiction being published as well. It sort of comes off as saying, fuck you, I don't want to keep providing my stories for free. Everybody who beta read for me for free or translated my work for free, I want to exploit that labor in some ways. I read a whole paper about this in the context of 50 Shades of Grey. It's really short. I'd recommend it. I just want to do my thing and make money off of this work that really used to be in a very community environment. It also, I think, in a lot of ways misunderstands the history of fandom. Anne Rice threatening to sue fanfic authors, that leading to on fanfic .net strike-throughs of removing explicit work and work from certain fandoms such as the Vampire Chronicles actually, and removing of queer work actually, which is kind of funny because fanfiction as we know it came from Kirksbach zines. And I think that is a level of entitlement as well, which is sort of why I actually ended up wanting to talk about this. And it's something that is frustrating for people in bookish communities right now, especially in the context of all of these Dermione works that are getting published, Draco x Hermione, which I don't think that J.K. Rowling is getting money from these. I know that's a conspiracy theory that these authors are somehow licensing her work. I don't think that's the case. I think that she's letting them publish all of this shit because it keeps her quite firmly in the cultural zeitgeist. And also it sort of pushes this narrative of like Harry Potter is for the fans. So like, does it really matter if I even watch the new HBO show, which, you know, I worry about the kids in that because I worry about child actors in general, but does not look very good because why can nobody light things these days? That's a real question I have. Why can nobody light anything? Hermione in particular is something I have studied the out of. I didn't read the Rose in Chains fic because the video I made about it, which is actually still one of my favorite videos I have made on this channel, was basically about comparing it to Alchemized, because both of these books are about a POC, either explicitly stated in this book or coded. In this book, Hermione being in sexual slavery to a white Draco Malfoy. He's not on this book, but he is here. And I read the fic of Alchemized because I hate myself. It was originally manacled, and I feel fine saying that because the author, Senlin Yu, would not shut up about it, and they also, like, this is their AO3 username. I might redo my Alchemized video because it's not good. It's 4 hours long, I take too long summarizing, but I really liked the analysis points I made in it. But yeah, there's frustration with seednies and rainbow stacks, and again, this sort of, I think, entitlement of like, these books don't actually harm the trans community, even though, as I've talked a little bit about, they do by keeping Harry Potter relevant, and J.K. Rowling has literally said the money that she makes off of it goes to funding all of her anti-trans BS in Great Britain, which is literally killing trans people like you thought it was bad in the US. Also, I never made a video about this, but the fic for it, which I listened to an audio version of actually, is still up. That is because Bridget Knightley says that this book is inspired by her fic, and having read both, no. This is a retelling of the fic, which retelling in my book does count as filing off the serial numbers, slightly rewriting it, and publishing it as a book. I am fascinated by the lawyers that said keeping the fic up was acceptable because these are basically the same. I can do the other side now, which you can't see, I'm sorry. Rose in Chains, I should never see this in a... No! If I ever see Rose in Chains in a rainbow stack, which, I mean, I guess I haven't seen any rainbow stacks, so seems pretty unlikely, I will crash out. This book was oddly homophobic, like in a way that it just really did not need to be. The only gay male character is constantly subjected to homophobic microaggressions, but honestly, within the context of the book, I think that's fine because he also has a male sex slave. But also, in the context of the real world, why are we having the only gay male character in this book have a male sex slave? Why are we having the only gay male character in this book be evil? And there is one sapphic scene, which is just fetishizing a woman making out with knockoff Hermione. Genuinely, I don't know why it was so homophobic. It was impressive. Julie Soto is an op for me, forever and always. So yeah, I think there's an entitlement there as well that is frustrating, I guess, to a specific subset of the bookish community. Alchemized, there is a truly unhinged Fairy Loot interview with Senlin Yu in which Senlin Yu, who's non-binary, which does make this situation a lot more confusing, they just say some very odd things about female characters. Speaking of fairy loot, there has also been a lot of frustration, I think, with these sort of book delivery crates, even beyond having these Dermione books, which caused a fair amount of people to cancel their subscriptions. They also recently had a crate with a homophobic author, I believe, and a romance crate, which is another one, and Australia-based, also had a similar situation, which again was really frustrating to the bookish community, especially during Pride Month. Oh my goodness.
Hi, Editing Alexi here. I do just want to say that I haven't been able to find definitively that this was the Fairy Loot Crate or exactly what Romance Cartel did. I do remember and could find a bunch of threads about, like, oh, Romance Cartel had some book by a racist author. But what I will say is the perception in the bookish community is that these two really big book delivery services are platforming bigoted authors. So I think my point about this frustration does still stand overall.
That's just another level of frustration that this social media-y book community is going through, which then leads to the Hot Girls Read situation being sort of a breaking point, straw that broke the camel's back, I don't know. So I think a lot of the outrage was technically about other things, but it ended up showing up in this Hot Girls Read situation, which also, that's not to say people were not actually mad at Hot Girls Read. They were mad at other stuff. Like, no, you can be mad at multiple things at once. But what I'm saying is I think that people overall are quite frustrated with the, in particular, social media-y bookish community, and this was just another example of that happened to breach containment onto YouTube and sort of leave bookish TikTok and Instagram and Threads spaces. I think probably part of that is also that people that aren't in these book communities are kind of already primed for trademark related content, because Patagonia, the company, is suing Patagonia, the drag queen, over her trying to trademark her name for like apparel and stuff. I think I'll make a video about that, because what harms me most personally in Pride Month is not the horrible transphobic legislation that is going into effect and transphobia just becoming more mainstream, or the bisexual discourse that happens every fucking year and somehow ends up always pitting bisexuals and lesbians against each other. No, my real problem during Pride Month is always corporations and the cis white gay men. That was a joke, that was sarcasm. I have problems with all of those things, just some of them are bigger problems than others. Basically, I think that the whole Hot Girls Read situation within the context of like bookstagram, book talk, that kind of thing, was part of a boiling over point of frustration at entitlement and racism and just other discrimination issues, and also this weird fanfic publishing trend. Oh, I hate this book. I hate this book. That's happening, and then I think that part of the reason it caught the interest of YouTubers that are bigger than me, and I quite like, to be clear, is because we're already sort of primed to be thinking about that, because there are other trademark situations going on that are perhaps a bit more mainstream, at least for the gays. And I'm not saying any of that in a judgy way or anything like that. Like, I think that's all fine. I don't think it's fine that this is leading to some pretty awful bullying of Ali Rose, who definitely did a thing, but doesn't deserve death threats for that. That's about it for me on this topic. Thank you for listening to sort of my rambly thoughts. It feels interesting to cover kind of like book talk, bookstagram drama again, because like that is a little bit how this channel started. I'm sort of thinking about like, do I want to do a really self-indulgent, here are the formerly fanfiction books I read, I'm gonna tier list how much I don't like them. Thanks so much for watching and listening to me be a little silly and watch me sort of do some sort of crafting right now. I think the B- that I got in my sculpture course that I had to take for my liberal arts degree was probably pretty deserved. My outro song is Take a Vacation by the Young Thanes. That was my very old dog, so if you heard any weird noises in this video, that was him. All channel art is by me. Like, comment, and subscribe. A hot agender lesbian recently explained what hyping is to me, so hype as well. I think the star is pretty and it does help me get the outside validation that I crave so much, and my therapist says I should work on that craving, but what is she now? Thank you so much again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.